Good morning. So today we're going to discuss what symbolism in the play, as well as how to create a proper introduction for a literary essay. You also will have some content questions for the second half of Act 2 for Death of a Salesman. The good news is this will be the end of our content questions. By the end of today's lesson, you should have a pretty good understanding of the content of the novel, of the play, and be able to intelligently discuss or identify some of the main symbols in the play, and then understand and then create a proper introduction for literary essay. And you'll actually do that. You'll practice in practice form. We'll create an introduction for a pretend literary essay that's going to prepare you for doing the actual introduction for our literary essay that's due at the end of next week. So still got lots of time, but we're going to walk through it very slowly and give you lots of time to get it done, because writing an essay can be involved. But if you know the steps, it's actually not that difficult. So learning goals and success criteria, exactly what I just talked about. If you can answer questions properly, if you understand how to create a proper introduction for a literary essay, and you understand the major symbols of the play, as well as how to identify them and put them towards the theme in terms of what Arthur Miller was trying to do, that's what we're trying to get done today. So the first thing I want to talk about is the idea of symbolism. And we know from our short story unit, our poetry unit, that a symbol is a concrete object. Like if something is concrete, you can show it. It's in your hand. It is like the table that I'm doing this on is concrete. It's actually a physical thing. You can touch it, feel it, smell it, see it, etc. We need these concrete things to represent abstract concepts. So abstract concepts being things like love, jealousy, war, hatred, anger. We can't touch those things. We can't feel those things. I can show you examples of those things, but I cannot hold jealousy in my hand. So as a result, we need a symbol. We need something concrete to symbolize that kind of convoluted abstract concept. So we use the color green to represent jealousy, and just kind of people know that green represents jealousy. Dove represents peace. This can represent peace, right? This symbol as a peace sign, etc. So we need concrete objects to represent abstract concepts. In Death of a Salesman, Arthur Miller uses lots of concrete objects to represent things that they really aren't, that are greater, and the meaning that these concrete objects have is greater than the object itself. And so what I've done here is I've given you, and you can open up and save this Google document, all of the important symbols in Death of a Salesman. Like Boston. Boston is a city. It's a physical place, but it also symbolizes lots of things for Willie. It symbolizes kind of when he was young, everything that he wanted. This Dave Singelman, a place of success. This is where Dave Singelman lived. It's where he made his living, and this is kind of the life that Willie aspired to have. I mean, wrongly, yes, we know that it isn't probably the life he should have done, but he did. Willie's father had a lot of success in Boston. Willie's goal and his failure to succeed is represented here. The major event that happens in the novel between him and Biff catches him cheating on his mother in Boston. So Boston is a huge symbol in the novel. And so, we cover theft, planting, the flute, losing weight, the refrigerator, the quarter, lots and lots of different symbols here to go over. You don't necessarily have to do anything with this other than please understand these are symbols, and you can try to bring these into your discussion in your literary essay, and you can talk about, so use these in some way possibly. Okay. I've also included a video here on some major symbols in the play. It doesn't cover all the ones that it covers in the Google document, but there's lots in here. We then move into some discussion of our literary essay, and especially the introduction part of our literary essay. So there's some kind of an example here about how to come up with introduction. Usually it comes from a question in some way. The concept of a thesis statement is discussed, and then topic sentence, and then goes down into your thesis statement, etc. So just a kind of a little bit of information about your introduction. A more detailed look is here. In your essay introduction piece. So what you're going to be doing in your literary essay, we talked about, is you're making a 5-paragraph essay. One paragraph of introduction, 1 paragraph of argument of your first main point, 1 paragraph of argument of your second main point, 1 paragraph of your third main point, and then find the conclusion to make 5 paragraphs. So the first thing we're going to talk about today is your introduction. And the first thing you have to know is that you argue nothing in your introduction. Your introduction is short. It's usually only 4 or 5 sentences, and it's very prescribed. It's literally the first sentence should be something, the second sentence, and that kind of thing. And that's what I talk about today in the Google document that I provide for you. It's going to explain to you exactly what order things are supposed to go in. The most important thing about your introduction is your thesis statement. It is the most important sentence in your essay. It is exactly what you're going to prove. It's not what you're going to talk about. It's not what your essay is about. It's not the moral. It is what you're proving in your essay. And this is everything you say after your introduction goes back to this statement. If you're going to prove that oranges are better than apples, okay, everything else you say in that essay has to go back to the fact that oranges are better than apples. Okay, you don't ever say, well, maybe apples could be better, etc. No, it's all about proving one thing and one idea, and you use main points and arguments to back that up. We're going to talk about main points and arguments tomorrow. Today, we're focusing on your introduction. So you have a topic sentence, a harness statement, a thesis statement, and a leading sentence. Okay? I've given you a document here, and you click your Google document, and then you go down and open this up. Talks in great detail about your introduction and then what these things are. So a topic sentence is the first sentence of your essay. Okay? It is a general statement that just kind of clues the reader into the topic of your essay. So it could be a quote, a question, or a direct statement. Okay, so you could use a quote. You could find a quote from somewhere else, not necessarily the novel, but a quote from somewhere else about whatever your topic is. If your topic is oranges, you could find a quote about how great oranges are. Okay? Or you could ask a question. Your question could be, why are oranges better than apples? It doesn't prove anything, but it simply lets the reader know what you're going to be talking about in your essay. Or you can make a direct statement. You could say, clearly, oranges are better than apples. Okay? And then you can move on. So it's not a very convoluted statement. It's not long. It's not fancy. It is either a statement, a quote, or a question as the first sentence of your essay. Then we move down to a harness statement. In a literary essay, you need a harness statement, because a harness statement basically is a little more specific sentence that contains the author and the name of the text you're working from. Obviously, when we write your Death of a Salesman essay, this sentence will include Death of a Salesman by Arthur Miller. Okay, so a sentence, your harness statement could be, as in Arthur Miller's Death of a Salesman, he clearly states that oranges are better than apples. It obviously doesn't say that, but just kind of sticking with the same theme, this idea of oranges being better than apples. If that was a piece in the play, you would harness the author and the play title to your topic. So you're kind of putting them together, and the harness statement does that. So the second sentence of your essay is going to be, of your introduction, is going to be a little more specific sentence as to your topic, harnessed with or putting together the author and the title of the work. The third sentence introduction is the most important one. It's your thesis statement. It's what you're going to prove. It's a very clear and concise statement. Okay, and don't say, in this essay, I will prove that. Just say what you're going to prove. You could say, clearly oranges are better than apples. But that's not it. You have to include what your 3 main points are going to be. So your thesis statement is what you're going to prove and how you're going to prove it. The how you're going to prove it are your arguments that you're going to use. The key is they have to be large concepts. They can't be things like, your arguments can't be Willie, Linda, and Biff. Those are very specific things. Those aren't arguments. Those are examples that you're using to back up your arguments. Okay, so you can say oranges are better than apples because they're cheaper, they're more readily available, and they are better for you nutritionally. Within each one of those categories, I can bring up a couple different examples backing them up. So I'm not just going to talk about the same thing all the time. You have to bring in different examples to back up what you're saying. And then finally, we have a leading sentence. A leading sentence simply leads the reader into what you're going to be talking about in your next paragraph. So in your introduction, your leading sentence must contain the topic, what you're going to talk about in your first main point. So I'd say my first main point is going to be about that oranges are better than apples nutritionally. My leading sentence might be like, nutrition is a major factor in our lives. Okay. Again, it doesn't even talk about oranges. It's simply cueing the reader of my essay that I'm transitioning between my introduction to my first main point. And I'm talking about nutrition. Then obviously in the main point, you would explain in detail, about nutritional factors and give you some examples backing up what you're saying. And we're going to talk about that tomorrow. Okay? And then at the very bottom here, you've got some questions for your for this play, just simply, answer the questions here, full complete sentences using quotes, back up what you're saying, and submit it to Dropbox. Okay?